Hello, listeners and readers of AwardsWatch.com. This is the Awards Watch Podcast, episode 227, 226, 227, somewhere around there. I am your executive editor, Ryan McQuade, and joining me is our editor-in-chief, Erik Anderson.
Yes, this is episode 227 because 226 was the Emmy podcast. Please listen to it. It's really good. Or
it
as
was
Ryan
good.
says, it's fine.
That's fine.
It was good. And I don't watch television, but I found it to be very informative.
Thank you, Josh.
I'm about halfway through it. I got to finish the other half. Our associate editor, Sophia Ciminello.
Hi, guys. I haven't listened to that episode yet, but I will this week.
Did you guys talk about reality shows? Because she's like big into the reality shows right now.
Yeah.
No, it
I
was
watch
it
Bravo
was just
every night.
Every day.
it was not. But yeah, I think Sophia and Tyler could probably do an entire reality Emmy podcast.
Honestly,
Oh
we
my
kind
God.
of should.
We kind of should.
Kind of should.
I think it's going to happen.
I think we're going to talk about it. Not on this show, but definitely offline. And Josh Parham.
Yes. Hello.
Josh coming in before he usually does his hello. Anything's up for grabs this week.
Well, you know, Ryan, you just bring it out in me.
I know, buddy, but that's why you love coming back and you love doing this show. We're going to talk about the number one film at the box office this week, Civil War, and we'll have a very civil discussion, I think, about that movie. Pretty, there's not a lot of crazy takes about that movie at all out there, or it's pretty straightforward kind of film. We're going to do our top, or not even our top five. We're just going to do our favorite political thrillers this week and just have a general discussion about that. But big news actually happened this week, and that was the Cannes Film Festival announced their lineup, and we're going to know what's in competition, what's out of competition, the big premieres that'll be happening in just less than a month in France. So, Erik, you did the write-up that's on the website. Any surprises here at all for the 77th edition of the Cannes Film Festival?
I'm not sure there's a lot of big surprises.
Cool, moving on.
I mean, certainly, a few that we knew that were already confirmed. And then, of course, Francis Ford Coppola accidentally revealed Megalopolis would be in competition during that sort of friends and family and looking for a buyer screening that he did just like about a week before the announcement. So, I mean, it would have been a bigger surprise had he obviously not mentioned it, but
did we not get the exclusive on that? Because I felt like everybody was saying that was an exclusive, but it feels like he kind of told everybody at that screening a couple of weeks ago.
It was a strange thing, that he was actually the exclusive, but then other people thought that they had. I don't know how that works. People apparently the definition of exclusive is different depending on who you talk to.
It's getting crazy out there with that word. Yes, but anyway.
It showing up wouldn't have been a huge surprise. I think it was hopeful, but the thing that's odd about it is that it's hard to get an in-competition slot when you don't have a distributor attached and your French rollout already there, because that is a part of being in competition that you have to have. That's why Netflix is not there anymore and hasn't been there since 2017.
Yeah.
So, and
they bought May December last year before,
exactly. Yeah. May December was a rare exception. Netflix buying it afterwards, different story.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was kind of cool that it ended up showing up. I think maybe The Apprentice might be one of the slightly bigger surprises, because the turnaround time on this Sebastian Stan playing Donald Trump in the 70s and 80s from Ali Bassi was really fast.
Yeah, because it seems like it'll be
they were
quality.
Just shooting it.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting.
It'll be something.
But there's a lot of really familiar names here outside of Coppola and his really strong era of the 70s. Sorrentino is here. Audiard is here. Cronenberg is back. It's
Yes,
kind
he
of cool
is.
that Cronenberg, Paul Schrader, and Francis Ford Coppola are all together. That's going to be a really great image, seeing
Yeah.
all three of those titans together.
It's nice to see the good Cronenberg show up at this festival and not the others. You know.
Yeah, I
Hashtag
think
Cronenberg. Yeah.
well, yes, I think that is
Yeah.
that much is true.
Yeah,
The kinds of kindness, it could really only show up here because it's coming out in June.
Mm-hmm.
But it's once again an extremely male heavy lineup. There's 19 titles in competition. We will probably get at least one or two more
Yeah.
that roll in. But that'd be about it.
Yeah. Well, Josh Parham, I'm going to kick it over to you because Josh is actually going to be going to Cannes, and so Josh, I know you were waiting for this lineup to see what you're going to be trekking all the way out there to France to see. So, were there some titles that you were really excited that got announced? Were there also some that you thought that might actually make it, but then feels like that didn't end up showing up on this lineup that you maybe still expect to be announced, Josh?
Well, in terms of what I was anticipating, and maybe I'm a little bit disappointed it's not there. I actually have a very kind of just laid back attitude when it comes to these lineups. Like for me, I'm just grateful to go, and I'm just grateful to see what I can.
Josh
So
gets it.
I'm like, okay, I can be a little upset that something's not there, but at the same time, it's Cannes, and I'm just gonna be happy to be there and see whatever. So like I was uh a little let down that like the Joshua Oppenheimer movie didn't get announced there, but
Mhm.
outside of that, like Megalopolis getting announced sort of erased any other thing that I would have felt, because I was actually very surprised that that showed up there. I did not really expect it, hopeful as was said, but I did not really think it was going to show up. So I was very happy to see that, because I don't think that movie is going to be very good, but I cannot wait to see it. I think that we are living in a blessed era that the director of The Godfather has a new movie out. Like, I just think we should be grateful for that. So I was very happy to see that. I was also happy that Bird was announced, because I am a big fan of Andrea Arnold and that cast too. Like, that's one of those situations where you tell me who's directing it, you tell me who's in it. I don't need any more information. I'm good. Same thing with Honora, the new Sean Baker movie.
Yep.
He's another one where I'm just so happy that he is making movies. I find him to be such an interesting storyteller. I'm glad that got announced. I'm very excited. And I mean, obviously, Limonov, the ballad, it's starring Ben Whishaw. Obviously, I was going to be very, very excited about it. I don't really care what the movie's about. It just stars Ben Whishaw. So, yeah, that is.
And Teo Yu with
I did not know
70s.
that.
Yes. Have you not
Oh.
seen the pictures of each
I
of
was
them?
just so
Oh
I was
my
just so
Eric's
god.
got
obsessed with Ben
them
Whishaw.
implanted into his eyelids right now.
Okay, well, that
Yeah.
makes it even better.
Yeah, they've got 70s shag mullets, and it is a lot.
All
It's
right, well, that
beautiful.
is definitely my number one most anticipated now.
Yes. I was like, this is a Josh movie if there was ever a Josh movie.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
It looks really great.
Sophia, you saw this lineup. Any of these movies already that you're looking at? And I know Sophia is doing the same thing I am, and Erik is too. It's like, okay, which one of these films will not only Josh be seeing next in a couple of weeks? Which ones of these do we hope and pray to God will show up in September when we're in Telluride, so that we could see these as well?
Exactly. That is the place I was going, looking at this Cannes lineup. I mean, there is usually a lot of crossover between Cannes and Telluride, especially with a lot of the international features that play there. And Josh, you're going to have the best time. I went to Cannes in 2021. It's just so beautiful and glamorous, and just like the most perfect place in the world to see movies, aside from Telluride, of course. It's really those two for me. But for Telluride, I think just in terms of what I'm excited for looking at this list, definitely Bird from Andrea Arnold. I hope that we get that in Telluride. I'm really excited for that. I also just think, too, I think we have to look at the list, too, and just think, like, whose year could it be at these festivals? Like, who could be celebrated? And Andrea Arnold, I mean, of course, Coppola, obviously. Huge, major director. I can't wait to see what Megalopolis is. But Andrea Arnold feels like a person who, it could be time for more people to get on board with her work and celebrate her. She has already won jury prizes previously for her work there, so I think it could be a really big year for her. And I think, didn't Barry Keoghan turn down or back out of Gladiator 2 for Bird?
Yes.
So
Hell yeah,
must
he did.
must be good.
Well, must
Speaking
also
of,
be something about Gladiator
well,
too. But yeah, but no, that's beside the point.
well, I mean, I think I'd choose working with Andrea Arnold over Ridley Scott as well, but
Fair.
that's just me. Speaking of Saltburn, Barry Keoghan, Jacob Elordi, I am excited to see O Canada, and I really hope that that comes to Telluride. I just am envisioning seeing Jacob Elordi and Richard Gere on the mountain.
Yeah. It's
too much.
it's a vision board Sophia has been talking about.
Yes,
with
this
me
is
for a
a
while.
this is a vision board. This is a manifesting activity, strong exercise for me. But yeah, I hope that we get that one. That's really exciting. I'm always thrilled for a new Cronenberg. I think he's just a really singular voice with many copycats who never quite reach those levels. The Apprentice, I'm terrified for that. I have to say, I don't think I'm really in the mood for a Trump movie or, Jeremy Strong playing Roy Cohn, but I think the Europeans will be very into it. That's my early prognostication.
Yeah, from the people that loved Ruben Östlund comes that film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think the show. Go ahead.
I honestly think that movie, The Apprentice, could be our international director spot.
Oh God.
I have
on the
a
same
feeling
wavelength.
about it.
I'm writing this one down for later in the year, Josh.
Wow.
It would fit
Josh.
so much because usually there is a director there who has a little bit of a profile to build upon. And yeah, Sophia said, I think this movie is going to appeal very much to Europeans, the American audience. I don't know, but the director's branch, as we know, heavily leans international. So if they're strong enough, I think that could be one to look at.
It also could just be a complete dumpster fire of a film being rushed out and also being extremely on the nose. And also, I mean, we're going to talk about a movie today with Civil War that people are calling really dangerous leading up to an election. A movie like that getting distributed literally probably a month or so, or maybe even closely after the election. Yeah, it's never like the greatest thing I think that this project even exists, but whatever, we'll see. I mean, it also just looks like something an FX show would do, like one of those like Sebastian Stan, Craig Gillespie first look kind of shows, like that looks exactly like that. So I can't
hear the name Craig Gillespie.
So maybe it's got a good screenplay or something, and that's what a prize that it wins. But I don't.
I think if it's going to be the international director player, it's going to have to have place extremely high. At the festival here, it's not. I don't think going to just randomly become that, because historically, what we're looking at from the international director lineups is a kickoff, usually here. Winning director or the grand prize or the palm. So I would say it has to fall into one of those three to have.
Oh, I would agree with
really
that.
Be that.
Yeah. I don't know if Greta Gerwig led jury would give it to the Donald Trump movie, but we'll see.
Well,
you never know. Steven Spielberg gave it to Blue is the Warmest Color, so it's
exactly. I think people overestimate what they think that a jury is
that's
going
always
to
that's always like my go-to one.
It's
sorry.
And right now we only have Gerwig as the president. We do not have,
we don't have
the jury lineup yet.
Well, I mean, clearly Ruben Östlund's free, so maybe they just get him back up there because that motherfucker doesn't know to shut the fuck up. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
good lord.
No,
he's
distributing all those
listen to Greta
licenses.
Gerwig.
Yeah.
With
he's got to get he's handing out all the licenses before the screenings. He's got it. Are you doing alphabetical? Is it a number system? Like, figure it out, Ruben. God damn, So
I am also just morbidly curious about Horizon and American Saga playing out of competition.
Wait, part one. Let's be
part
fair.
one, right? And
Come on.
There are 2 parts coming later?
I think it's
this
just.
summer?
I think it's. I think that we only get
It's
two
just
parts
this one
this
and
year,
one more this summer.
and
Okay.
then next year I think we get part 3 and 4. So
Well, he's got like 3 and 4 written. I don't think he's made them.
Yeah, he
yet.
hasn't made
He
them
has
yet.
made 1 and 2.
yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, Kevin Costner, folks.
know.
Like a 4-part unnecessary American epic set in the
We're so back.
yeah. It feels like his answer to Yellowstone, and it's so spiteful,
Uh-huh.
and when you
Oh,
read
it's
all the stuff behind,
100% that.
yeah, but also I kind of want to see it because it just looks like
I
it's
wanna
going to
see
be
it. Yeah.
a fun, weird shit. Yeah, no, I mean, I am.
It looks like cowboys and Indians and nonsense.
Yeah.
So
It looks like from the director of Dances with Wolves. Okay,
exactly that.
It looked like somebody's going through a bad divorce and needs to express his feelings.
I don't know. When your top talent is Sienna Miller, I don't know. Maybe something's not going well.
Is he safe in Santa Barbara or wherever he is?
I always just think of Jane Campion. Thank you, Kevin. That was dark,
Very dramatic.
very dramatic. Yeah.
Yes.
I am excited about that, just to hear whatever the hell that thing's going to be. And then, yeah, I mean, obviously already announced. I am curious to see the reception to Furiosa. George Miller returning. The last time he had a Mad Max movie with Fury Road. I'm curious about Nomi Merlant's film that she's directed. And no one's mentioned him, but he is a name that a lot of people really like, and he has movies that people really enjoy, and that's Sean Baker's new film that's going to be there, and it's in competition.
That's 100% going to Telluride.
That's
100%.
Yeah, 100%.
You can bank
You can just
that.
feel like that it would be there. And Jacques Audiard has a new film as well too. Yeah, we're getting another Lanthimos now, and then we'll probably have another Lanthimos film later in the year, from what we all know. I think yes, Paul Schrader, and there was a picture this week of Paul Schrader, Francis Ford Coppola, and George Lucas, all back there in the 70s at Cannes, and Lucas is getting a special prize. Schrader will be there with O Canada, and then obviously Coppola will be there for Megalopolis, so it'll be a very special, I think, screening of that film too, because of the
It's almost like they planned it that way. It's so weird, totally accidental.
Well, also to the passing of his wife this past week as well too. It'll be very special, I think, night there. And in one of the big premieres. I mean, also Paolo Sorrentino has a film in competition, unfortunately, but that's also somebody that the Academy does like. And also,
he's another one I'm looking out for.
He's somebody that I think could make the transition over to Telluride and all the other fall festivals as well, and could be a director nominee as well. So,
and there's a lot outside of competition too.
Yeah.
There's Raoul Peck.
Yes.
I like Raoul Peck. Oh my god, that's so savage. Leos Carax. There's a lot.
Yeah,
there's,
Leos Carax. Yeah, his follow up to Annette.
Super into whatever that is.
I was just gonna say, like, Josh, I have to know what that is, because like I had no idea he was even making a new movie. And
it seems like it's not even a feature length. It sounds like it's actually a short.
Oh, okay. Well, that's interesting.
But it's autobiographical.
Yeah.
Based on the title.
And Danny Levant is in it too, so I'm so curious. Carax is not a director that I have loved all of his movies, but he's so fascinating to me.
Yeah. And Josh, you have to see it at Cannes, because there's nothing like seeing a movie from him there. It is just such a weird experience. Like, I saw Annette when I went. It was just out of this world crazy to watch that with French people.
No.
I can imagine.
We'll have a lot more. We'll obviously they're going to announce more films potentially over the next couple of weeks, and maybe we'll get Josh to call in or give us some sort of "Hey, how's it going?" from Cannes in the coming weeks to come. But Josh, sounds like you're going to have an amazing time. I mean, this to me feels like the best lineup someone could get, based off of the film slate that kind of looks a little bit barren due to the film year, as well as the strike and all that stuff. It's not as giant as, you know, you're not having a giant Killers of the Flower Moon, or you're not having, you know, potentially, you know, something like Anatomy of a Fall or Zone of Interest. But that's kind of the thing too, is that you go and discover some films and potentially and find the next contenders too. That'll be a lot of fun as well. But I'm looking forward to seeing all your coverage and everything there, Josh. It's going to be a life-changing event.
Oh yeah, and the discovery is also an interesting part of it too, because on the subject of Anatomy of a Fall, nobody knew what that movie was before you know, the festival actually started. So I'm looking forward to that as well. And this really does feel like a good lineup for me too. It feels like there's a lot
it's
of
a Josh lineup. Yeah.
To my particular interest in movies. So that's what also feels like it's going to be a fun time.
I was really hoping you were going to get like Despicable Me 4, or what's that Zachary Levi Harold and the Purple Crayon thing? I was like, I was really expecting like some CinemaCon fare to kind of sneak over there, you know what I mean, for you, Josh. But alas, it's an actual festival and not, you know, just something that you know, avoid all your life problems to go to Vegas for a couple of days. It's actually like something real and tangible. Anyway.
Yeah. I was going to say, if I can make a recommendation to Josh, is to make sure and visit all of the different country pavilions that are along the beach, because there's usually like at least 50 or 60 representing all different countries and whatever they have there at the festival. It's wonderful. They're just little tents on the beach. And open to the beach right outside of them. The American Pavilion obviously is going to have a lot of panels and discussions, and they're very intimate and small and really fun. And they also have a gay night party and dance party, and it's always fantastic. So high key recommend.
Say no more.
There you go. I don't think we're going to get Josh back. I mean, he might just stay there forever now.
I'm telling you, if you can turn in a review while you are sitting on the beach with an Aperol Spritz, why would you not?
I mean, like I saw last year,
get on the plane.
I mean, like I saw last year, some critics, they didn't leave for like 6 months. It felt like, you know what I mean? So, you know, why would you want to leave? It's a wonderful place. Anyway. Speaking
using
of
the term critics loosely, but yes.
I know. Well, you know, you're just trying.
Some of them are just trying to get there.
Oh, exactly. You know what I mean? Some of
a helping hand with that.
Some of them need a GoFundMe page. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hairline and all.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So anyway, speaking of, we're just gonna try. I'm not even going to try to transition out of that. This is just wild. We're going to talk about Alex Garland's latest film. Guy that I believe his last film was at the Cannes Film Festival in Men. Which was not good, but he's decided to double down on his concepts and deliver Civil War in an election year. And it's been a film that's been highly discussed online, and it was at the South by Southwest Film Festival. I was lucky enough to see it in the IMAX with a bunch of let's call them critics as well too, and loose term. And it was a very interesting experience, and one that I think is one that will provoke a really interesting discussion. More than 180 characters online, you know, or if you have a stupid streaming YouTube channel or whatever the case may be. Fake Tony Stark. Let's talk about Civil War. And I'm curious from everyone's perspective how they saw the film and what they just think of it in general, because it's just kind of been the hot button issue of the week. So, Erik, I'm going to start with you. How'd you see it? Did you watch it in IMAX? Was it regular? Did you watch it with the normies, or did you watch it at press screening? And what do you think of the movie?
I watched an IMAX press screening that was probably 50% press, and then
influencers.
It didn't seem like there were influencers there. It wasn't like
not the kind of movie you want to influence.
Barbie screening, which was like 80% influencers, and they're like, yeah, a few press can come. It wasn't quite that, but
not a lot of people dressed in camo.
I would have been a little worried about that.
Yeah.
There were a lot of plus ones though, I'll say that. So of the not press people.
Okay.
But I did think the IMAX of it all was quite a good choice for this screening. And I mean, yes, if you can see IMAX, then go and see it in that format, because it is such a assault on the oral and visual senses in a good way. But it's really weird. I think all this like 3 weeks ago now. And my relationship to this movie and what I think about it has gone through more changes than almost anything that I have seen in a really, really long time. Because I was kind of on board with it through most of the film, and I actually really loved the no stand that it had. I thought that was actually great, because it makes you pretty uncomfortable as a viewer, because you want to find a place and a person to align with so that you can sort of feel comfortable in the things that you feel comfortable with. And so it was constantly at odds with that, because, okay, you're like, I'm on the side of the journalists because they're telling a story and they're doing it presumably and hopefully with as little bias as possible. Although the reality of that is there's always bias. There is no such thing as an unbiased journalist or war photographer, because they're taking a million pictures, but they're choosing the one that has the impact and the story that they want to tell. So there is really no such thing ever as being unbiased. And it's always funny when someone feels like they can be unbiased about something, because you can't be. None of us can be. And that's okay. We bring our bias to every single thing that we see and to every experience that we have. That's okay. There's not I don't think there should be too much controversy about that as an idea. But I think, as the film goes on, you do think that you have the right, quote unquote, allegiance and alliance to somebody, as you are going through this with Kaylee Spaney and Kirsten Dunst and Wagner Moura, all of which are fucking fantastic here.
And Stephen McKinley Henderson.
And Steve, I was going to get to him, yes, because as I said in my tweet, the lesson that you should always take away, no matter what your story is to fucking listen to Stephen McKinley Henderson, because if you don't, shit goes wrong.
Yep, it's true.
But yeah, like when they are trying to get the long road to DC, because you cannot take a direct route to DC. So they're going 857 miles from Philadelphia to DC. And they come across this one small section in the middle of nowhere, and they're being shot at. And then there are snipers already in place trying to kill this sniper. And shout out to the sniper with the fingernails and colored hair. Absolute king. That was such an interesting thing, because your mind is constantly playing tricks on you during this movie, again, with who you think you're supposed to be aligning with. And so he's sort of protecting the journalist. So yeah, he's a good guy, but you don't know that. You don't know anybody's real politics, because in this movie, Florida, Texas, and California are all aligned. And I think so many people got so mad at that as being unrealistic. And if that's your approach, I don't know really what to tell you. I think it's the thing that made it super fascinating and super challenging. I wasn't a really big fan with the actual ending. I mean, like really like the last 5 minutes, I was pretty unhappy with, even though it's going to happen really in the first minutes of the movie. It's going to happen. I just didn't like how it was executed. But I think it is pretty thrilling. I don't think it's dangerous. I think maybe it's dangerous because it's a hit now. If it was a small movie, not so much. But I don't know. I didn't view it as a really dangerous film.
Okay. All right. All right. Sophia?
Yeah, so I saw this at a public screening. My press screening was the same night as Challengers, and I chose Challengers instead.
Smart move.
So I waited. It was not a difficult
That's
choice,
not, no,
really. I didn't even really think about
that's not
it.
even a choice, to be
Yeah.
fair.
Yeah, that was correct. 100%.
Yeah, I made the right choice. So this movie is interesting to me because I think that it's very different from what I thought it would be based on the trailer. I think that the trailer gives you an idea that it's going to be very, I don't know. I got the sense that I was going to be very actively annoyed and irritated by the movie. When in fact, what surprised me is that I sort of felt numb to it. I actually found myself feeling rather bored by long stretches of this movie, which at times I started to think, okay, is that part of the point? Like I've become so desensitized to imagery like this, to thinking about the future of American politics like this, that that's what it's making me feel. But I think the problem that I've come to, I don't know, think about more and more with this movie is that it clearly wants to provoke, but you can't just want to provoke. You have to have something that you're trying to say, and you have to execute that. And I feel the further and further I get away from it, it's a little bit empty. And I love the sound work. I love the editing. I think that the way that it would quickly edit and cut out the sound to those images that the photographers were capturing, I thought that was really smart. I thought that the visual effects were great, especially, considering the budget, and I liked the action sequences. I think there are a number of great set pieces that we can talk through. That Winter Wonderland I thought was great. I loved that. I loved the scene with Jesse Plemons as well, but there's always that Alex Garland thing for me, which has happened in his last two films, where I will think that a shot or an idea is particularly smart, and then I hear the most frustrating bit of dialogue that is absolutely on the nose that just makes me roll my eyes. And there were a few instances of that here, I think especially during that Plemons scene and just between some of the journalists as they were traveling. I think that these characters just aren't real characters, especially the women. And that I think is also why the ending is challenging. I liked the way that the ending was shot. I found that that was actually pretty harrowing, but because it's so predictable, because these women don't feel like real characters, they feel like ciphers, truly. I couldn't really feel much from that. And I think that sometimes Alex Garland is a filmmaker, at least he feels like this to me, who comes up with the ending before anything else. It's like, this is what I want. This is how I want my film to end. This is what I want to say with the ending. Let me make a film around that. And I found that to be the case here, I think. So I'm very mixed on it. I liked it more than I thought I would. And I found certain things in it really compelling and challenging, but other parts frustratingly empty.
Yeah. Josh, where do you stand on it? Because it seems like we got one positive, one mixed, so that only could leave maybe the other
No,
side.
I did say it was positive. My whole
you're
thing
mixed
is that
too? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
It sounded more positive.
My opinion on this has changed every single day, because I'm constantly like, was this good? Are these needle drops absolutely ridiculous? Yes, they are. And the timing of them, absolutely absurd.
Yeah.
And then there are things that I really loved. So it is extremely mixed, and I feel different about it every day.
Yeah. All right. Okay.
Yeah, I would say not that I liked the movie more than I expected to. I think I would more so say I didn't hate it as much as I expected to. I think that'd be a little bit more accurate, because I still don't think it's a good movie. I do give it a lot of credit for at least the craft. Yes, the sound design, very impactful. I think some of those sequences are extremely well done and choreographed and all of that. But to me, it's a movie that I do feel like is missing crucial detail. And not that I need it to like explain every single thing and have every political position laid out, but I at least needed to feel a sense of place within this world, especially if you're like creating an environment that doesn't exist right now. Like, it's almost like science fiction, and science fiction lives on your world building. You need to know what the details of this world are so that you can understand what the characters are going through, what motivates them through this story. And I felt like it had none of that. It had an idea that the United States is under civil war, but nothing to really add to that. Not like, and I don't, as I said, I don't even need it to come down one side or another, but it needs to have perspective. It needs to have some kind of viewpoint. And I found it that the movie had none of that, that it just had these characters who were just really like archetypes. They don't really have any true depth to them. And whatever you do get is solely based on their performances. So I didn't really like the characters. I didn't like the plot. It's so episodic, and it just feels like we're going from one spot to another, not because the characters want to go to, but just because the plot is telling them they need to go to this location. And I just found the storytelling so frustrating and so emotionally distant that I could not really connect with it. So I don't think it's like a terrible, terrible movie. It does have some redeeming qualities of it, but I found it to be really empty at the same time. And I find that it masks or uses that apolitical nature as a mask for not having anything substantial to say on any thematic level. And it just wants to throw it out and say, well, it's not supposed to say anything because we're in the middle. But like Eric, you made a great point that like even journalists who are supposed to attack something with objectivity, that doesn't mean you have no sense of perspective on that work. You still have to bring something to it, and that is an interesting conversation about like where the sides of the Civil War are, what are they fighting for, where does our allegiance lie, especially when you consider the context of the last Civil War. We're generally taught the Union is good and the rebels are bad. Well, maybe there is something different to say here. That would be a fascinating discussion, but the movie doesn't want to engage in that. I feel like because it just thinks then it would be saying something political. It might take a side accidentally, and it is so scared to do so that it doesn't investigate any interesting idea. And I found that to be very frustrating.
Well, I mean, he underlines that by having Kirsten Dunst say, basically, I take the pictures and everyone else asks the questions. I mean, he's like, here's my thesis right here.
Yeah, that's not really how journalism works.
And he puts in, I think too, like you can't fully be right, like apolitical or not have a perspective when you are choosing to put in certain details, like the photo of the Antifa massacre, that little detail that he throws in. Like you can't do that and then back off. That to me just shows your cowardice or your unwillingness to commit.
Or laziness.
That too.
It's just a little pot stirring. It's a little shit stirring and then like running off.
Yeah.
Also, Ryan must have loved this movie.
I mean, God, I hate to be this person. So I Sophia knows and Erik knows I was ready to loathe the shit out of this thing. I think that trailer is one of the worst trailers, maybe in the last 10 years. I think it, especially when you see the final product, because it's clearly not that movie. It's clearly not even I think you're absolutely right, Josh. I don't even think at times this is a political movie. At times this movie is just a movie about how journalists, like if you took the idea of the Civil War part, which is the world that is behind it, and you just set it in maybe if you set it in a contemporary location with conflict, right? A war going on, or just somewhere where there is strife. Doesn't have to be an American Civil War. I think that's how would we cover this? How would we look through it? How would our perspective be? Would at that point, even when there is hope, would we just fundamentally have people that are like Kirsten Dunst in this film, which is essentially just, I'm just doing the photos, I'm making my way to get to this thing, I don't really particularly care anymore, when everything around me has just turned to shit, when you have gone full cynicism and there is no hope left in a person. And I thought a lot of that was actually interesting. I think that Kaylee Spaney's character, her kind of seeing the idea of all these photos and images of your hero and essentially diving into a world you don't fully understand or you don't really expect, thinking that it's one thing and another. Most of that stuff is really interesting. And I liked the film for the most part until it becomes the movie that it does in the last 30 minutes of this movie, which it becomes, we got to get the money shot of the president, and we've got to actually remember that, oh, we're doing all this to get to exactly where they go by the end of it. And Josh, you are kind of right. It is sort of television episodic. It is sort of also very video gamey, right? Call of Duty.
It's like The Walking Dead. Actually, they just go from like thing to thing,
section to section, and there's, I think, some incredible sequences. I think the Winter Wonderland sequence is incredible. The gas station one, the sequence of I think of pure terror when you're thinking about most of the horrific things that happen to them happen in broad daylight, as just opposed to the time of peace until the end for them is really at night. And that's the football sequence. I thought was really well done. And then of course this, I think, a fantastic scene solely because you're right, Josh, of like Jesse Plemons, who gives an incredibly terrifying performance. If he was in more of this movie, it would actually have a political point, and it would also be one of the most terrifying things I've probably seen if he kept being in that film more and more. And that scene is the movie that everybody thinks that they're going to get because it's in the trailer, but it's even extended upon. The terror is reached up to a high level. If you watch it in an IMAX, the sound is absolutely terrifying as well. It's perfect filmmaking, in my opinion. But then you get to, again, like Erik said, the last 5 minutes of this movie. What it decides to do with all these journalists, what it decides to do in the final moments of this movie, completely upend everything that you've seen before. Now, does that make it a wasted exercise or a worthless exercise? No, I think it goes right to Sophia's kind of hypothesis, which is that Alex Garland makes up the shit and how he's going to end it before he makes, and then he wraps the rest of the movie around it. And I think the rest of the movie around it is much more interesting, and maybe it's not perfect because no movie is, but I was still entertained by it, and I was shocked that it wasn't a giant piece of shit. And I think that that's kind of, and also I was seeing it in the IMAX, and I think that
put that on the poster.
I mean, sure, it's better than that
pull quote.
that font for sure, that lime green font for sure. But I do think that, you know, the movie isn't trying to at times make a stand, and that is frustrating. But it clearly is. Like it's not. It's like, you know,
Yeah.
it's clearly like anyone that, I mean, I'm just going to say anyone that leans to the right is not going to like the way that the people that are the scary guys or Plemons or even the guy shooting the guy in the house at the Winter Wonderland, how they're portrayed. Like they're portraying, you know, every one of the characters that seems to be good is a person of color, and everybody that's bad is the white guy with a Southern accent. Like, and they're mostly driving up in the Northeast, and it feels like those are kind of Southern coded characters. It's weird. Anyway.
Well, Nick Offerman is basically playing Trump, too.
I mean, he basically is. Like, just give him a comb
He's
over.
given
and
himself a
you know what I
third
mean?
term.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
Yes, holed up in the White House. He's referred to as Mussolini and Gaddafi. So that gives you, there are a lot of bits of information. So it isn't totally, you know, side and stand free. But to your point, Ryan, you put a character like Plemons in there, who he clearly is the bad guy in this story.
Yeah.
And you think about, you transplant, you know, to what the United States is now, who would be the Plemons character?
Right.
Who actually forms, you know, jack off militias in this country? It's
people in my state, not in y'all's state.
It's not
That's just-
Democrats.
It's in every state.
Yeah,
honestly.
but it
like,
is
yeah,
in every state.
yeah.
But so there, I mean, for all of the hemming and hawing about, you know, not much of a stand, it does make a lot of like, here is who is who.
And when, you know, obviously it's a work of fiction, even though you're clearly, you know, he's the thing that kind of drove me nuts about this movie in the time that I've since saw it, because I was pretty positive on it, and I thought the experience was surprising, and I was surprised. and I haven't changed my Letterboxd review, so I may change it because like I've thought about it. And also in that time period, Alex Garland's opened his mouth, and it's very Darren Aronofsky Mother, where
Poor
damn
Kirsten
it, if
Dunst.
you would have just shut up, I would have like actually liked this movie more. But when he's gone on to try to explain,
I'm
the-
not
you know-
listening to any negative mother discourse.
I
Not-
still like
not
Mother,
ever.
but I mean, Darren Aronofsky doesn't leave anything ambiguous anymore with that movie.
Yeah, he
And-
ruins the experience of watching.
Yeah,
that
he
movie.
does.
Yeah.
A little bit. He does, Eric. There's no defending that. There's no defending that. I like the movie. I think it's Aronofsky's best, but it's still ruined by the fact that he opened his big fucking mouth. Okay. And this movie, like, I'm not an idiot. I understand that California and Texas would probably merge because of the dictator that's in the White House. That I don't need you to spoon feed that to me or explain like your political stance on this and then actually kind of dig your hole. I mean, it reminded me flashback to Melancholia, not to like that extreme extent, but it was like I felt so bad because every time he's explaining, Kirsten Dunst is sitting right there and she's like, fuck, what did I do? Who did I do wrong in order to, because I think her performance is very good in this movie. Wagner Moore is very good in this movie. Kaylee Spaney, up until the last 10 minutes, is pretty good in this movie. And Stephen McKinley Henderson is fantastic, showing once again that Denis Villeneuve is an idiot for cutting him out of Dune Part 2. Like
So many people catching strays on this episode. It's
exactly. They deserve it. And then like best in show is Plemons coming in for 5 minutes, like proving my theory that he's one of the best actors we have working today. And he's not underrated, which all these people are out there saying like, nobody's underrated. Like, what are you talking about? He's an Oscar nominee and an Emmy nominee, for Christ's sake. Anyway, yeah, like the performances carry a pretty standard script that doesn't really like amount to a hell of a lot of more than the discourse that online has created. But at the end of the day, I don't want Alex Garland making a Civil War movie that has all those political things because one, I know he's not smart enough. I've seen Men. And two is that he's never had really nuance in any of his movies, to be fair. And so for us to expect that, I mean, sure, we expect a lot of things from a lot of people, but I'm not looking for it in Alex Garland. I'm just hoping like it's a pretty decent, entertaining time. And I mean, for the most part, it's a fine film. It's better than the garbage that he delivered before, and it's better than the absolute pile of shit that I thought it was going to be. Put it on the quote. Put it on the poster. Put it in the sky. And I do think that there's a lot of interesting things about how people would report on an event like this. And I do think that those conversations. I think that the movie's best when it's just about the four of them kind of traveling. I don't think that it's really when we get into those big bombastic sort of moments of idealism is that when we have to really like when we actually have to talk about a Civil War movie is when this movie is bad, actually.
What did you guys think about the scene at the dress shop?
Ooh.
That was an eye roller for me.
Really?
That was one of the don't you know there's a war going on? Oh, we try to stay out of it. It's like, where did you find that dialogue? Facebook? Like I just that it felt like that to me, and it was just very obvious.
I mean, that's like
it
Taylor
was
Swift in a nutshell, though.
Yeah,
Like-
it is, sure, of course.
Yeah, it was armchair judgment.
Mhm.
It's like this is all of you watching right now. This is you guys.
I mean, most people are like that. I mean, to be fair.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was.
It's the way you present it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like you can present that.
It's a little silly.
It
It's
is
just kinda
silly.
silly.
Well, it's silly because like then 2 seconds later you got snipers up on the roof. So clearly you do give a shit about this.
Well, but
like,
that's the commentary though, and
That is it.
I actually did
Yeah.
love that shot. I loved that very slow tilt up to reveal the snipers on the roof, and that's the point it's trying to make it that. At that moment is like these are people who will tell you, "Oh yeah, we don't pay attention. We're just checked out." But no, they know what's going on. They just refuse to engage. And like, yeah, it's very broadly drawn and on the nose, but at least it had that one shot that I kind of like. There are moments where I do think it does get very interesting with what it is trying to say politically. I do think like the scene with Jesse Plemons, it is the one time where it does go for more explicit dialogue in terms of like motivations of people who are fighting. And for that, I was appreciative just because I could get a sense of where people's motivations were coming from. I think it was actually a missed opportunity to make the motivations of his character in particular to be so like xenophobic in nature. Like, I actually think the answer to the question of what kind of American are you in a Civil War context is super fascinating, and it just felt like they defaulted to literally not being American. And it's like, man, that you had an interesting thing to say here that you just completely sidestepped.
Well, I mean, I don't think it's about not being American. I think it's about like
he shoots the two people that literally are not American.
When
no, he
says
shoots the
Hong Kong,
he shoots
makes him do it.
No, he shoots the two people that are part of that come from or were born from the Loyalist states that's supposed to be born in Florida, which is part of the Alliance. Like, that's the point.
No, but he's fine with Missouri, Colorado, and Florida, and he shoots the guy when he says Hong Kong.
Yeah.
No,
yeah.
I thought you were talking.
Go there.
No. I thought you were talking
friends.
Oh, okay. The friends. I thought you were talking about Wagner Moore because he was like literally about to shoot him, and he's from Florida.
Yeah.
That's what I was like.
Yeah.
Before Stephen McKinley Henderson literally like. No, he only lives because he gets hit by a car. You know what I mean?
This is I think where a lot of people did have a big issue, and understandably so. And that scene really underscores it because the two people that were killed were essentially non-essentials and non-white. And that made them nothing but pawns to be killed in a story.
Yeah.
Which
they were red shirts the minute they walked on screen.
They were like,
but exactly that. And it's but those are still casting choices and decisions that as a viewer you are making judgment understandings based on that, and that is historically just something that has kind of always been that way. So that is an issue with that scene that's very understandably, I don't even want to say problematic, but it is.
I can understand people's frustration with that scene. I can.
Yeah, very, very much.
Because you're looking for yourself in a movie.
Being the scene that is like really, like Josh said, getting as close as possible to doing something.
Yeah. I think the reason why it makes people upset, and I was mostly talking about the Wagner Moore character, not these other journalists that are with.
He doesn't matter because they
I understand. But the point is that
survive.
No, the reason why people are, I think, upset about it is because they're trying to look for themselves in their placement and the way Garland places everybody in this Civil War. And for the most part, we're following white journalists for the most part, at least through the perspective of the two real leads of the movie, which are two women. Because a lot of the time when we're not in the car, we're focusing on Kaylee Spaney and Kirsten Dunst. And so, I mean, Stephen McKinley Henderson's character is almost treated just as bad by the end of the film.
That was also very predictable.
Yeah, it's very predictable.
Everything's predictable.
Yeah.
Everything is. But like I said, you know from the first moments of Dunst on screen of how beleaguered she is and how over it she is. Yeah. You just know, and then you've got the new girl, and it's a very threadbare story of these two, veteran and upstart, and what that's going
archetypes.
To be.
Yeah,
extreme
it's like
archetypes.
First draft of all of these characters with very easily tracked arcs that they're going to go through. Like, there is nothing that they do in this movie that is shocking or surprising in the slightest.
I can't.
Yes, but I think Dunst does the most with what she has, because I was pretty constantly obsessed and captivated by her. But I mean, that's also her,
and that helps. I think that helps the overall movie too. I mean. It is one that, though, like Sophia and Erik and Josh is probably it's one that I can't stop thinking about, though. And whether it's good or bad, or whether, and I think that, obviously it's going to provoke discussion and audience members to go see it, though the cinema score wasn't very good with a B-, and it's probably going to max out this weekend with its money because people are going to figure out, oh, it's not actually that, about that at all in the trailer. Or it doesn't, I don't know. But, I was, it's not the best written film of the year. And I wasn't expecting, again, a bona fide wonderful screenplay from Alex Garland. But I think that it does its purpose in us trying to have a dialogue and a conversation from that standpoint, whether that dialogue and conversation is super substantive, based off of the issues that it's either trying to play around with or does play around with, is up to the audience and the people that are watching it. But, I think that Kirsten Dunst is very good in this film. I mean, in one of her better leading roles, and I hope that she gets more leading roles. Maybe with better material. Obviously,
I do like the little bit of trivia that I did not know until I was watching an interview with Spaney and Dunst a couple of days ago, that she got Priscilla like the day after the last day of shooting Civil War without an audition, entirely on Dunst's recommendation. Kind of amazing. It's pretty cool.
It's like, you want to be me? Well, then you can go be with my muse director then.
You can go be in a better movie after this. I'll gift you that.
A better written film for sure.
On nearly every level. Yes.
And Josh saying that says a lot because he's not the biggest Sophia Coppola fan on the planet. But everyone's seeing this movie evidently, and probably will continue to talk about it. So go see it in theaters.
We do have to mention, at least at the end, the most important thing about this movie, which is that Wagner Moura is so hot.
Yeah,
that's just,
I was waiting for someone to
mention that. Yes,
I was waiting for Josh to say it for sure, but I'm like, does that black shirt get smaller as we get to the end? Because when we get to the end, it's practically like a crop top, and I was
hanging
just like,
on by a thread.
I know I'm supposed to be feeling really sad in this like dramatic moment, but I also just want to smash. So how
the
am
arms were exposed?
The arms.
When you start thinking about like end of the world situations too, like
Wagner Moura made me believe in the Second Amendment.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yep.
He seemed like a terrible journalist. I do not understand.
No,
he was
shit. Terrible.
No shit.
It's awful.
I mean, some people just get away with their looks, for Christ's sake. God damn, he's such an idiot. He's just I'm gonna just bring this girl along to the, after just a spicy margarita in the fucking hotel lobby.
Spicy margarita.
Yeah, like, what the fuck is wrong with you, dude? Like,
so that element, 10 out of 10.
Yeah,
thank you for mentioning that, Josh. And of all people, that it should have been you to mention it. So I'm glad you did.
Josh, your fine work once again in this podcast. Civil War. We have a review up on the website. Another mixed reaction from Kevin, I believe, who wrote the review at us out by. He was kind of. I think it's like B minus. B minus.
I think it's B, but it's pretty.
It's conflicted as well. Yeah,
mixed. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember talking with Kevin afterwards, and we were just kind of like, I was once again thankful it wasn't a turd, but he was very much mixed on it, and his thoughts are in the review up on the website. But that did kind of this movie, if it does do anything, it gets us to talk about a topic that we haven't talked about on the show before. It's a fun topic, which is our favorite political thrillers, because we were just talking a lot about how this movie kind of really doesn't have an idea on what its politics wants to be, but there's a lot of great movies that do. And the political thriller can be some of the most thought-provoking and entertaining films. And also they can kind of bleed into a couple weeks ago when you guys talked about, I think it was all three of you guys were talking about the spy genre as well, too. Mm-hmm. And there's also just the great ones, I believe, have this the sense of duty, but also a complete distrust of the system that we all currently are living in or others are living in as well. And then provides dialogue and discussion and controversy, and that's why I think they're so great. So I'm gonna throw it out to the group here Anybody want to talk about one of their favorite political thrillers? Sophia's smiling, so I think Sophia, you go first.
Okay, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so speaking of spy films, I'm gonna try not to repeat the ones I shared on that episode. So I'm gonna stick to some new ones that I didn't get to talk about then, but I love political thrillers. And one of my favorite movies of all time is a political thriller, and that is All the President's Men.
Mhm.
Start the clock, folks. We're going to be
Start the
talking about this
clock.
for an hour and a half.
This is one of my most rewatchable movies, oddly. Like, I revisit it quite frequently. Anytime it's playing in theaters, I have to go. And I just saw it again recently, a few months ago, and was just struck by it, as I always am. I think that it is a perfect screenplay from William Goldman and just tackles all of that anxiety that you want from a political thriller, but differently than Civil War, this movie has characters. These characters are so well written and fully realized. I love how Dustin Hoffman and Robert Redford work together in this film, but also sort of play against type. Based on these characters, I think at first glance you would expect Redford to be the one who's hitting on the women who are staffers, and you expect Dustin Hoffman to be the one who's up all night with the messy apartment. But the fact that it's the opposite, I think, makes it that much better. What I also love about it is Gordon Willis's cinematography. I think it's so naturalistic, and I think that Gordon Willis is so known for shadows, and he's, been dubbed the Prince of Darkness, but the way he captures that office building and its bright lights and that really drab DC look is absolutely perfect. I love the contrast there, and I think it is really just a perfect movie for me. I love the noise in the newsroom, how Pakula will fill the frame with the noise of the typewriters and the newsreels from that time. I think it is just the best. And there's just nothing better than Jason Robards' pep talk.
Yeah.
I know other people want to talk about it, so that's my quick little.
Yeah, you guys want to talk about All the President's Men? You gonna like it?
Well, we knew this was coming, especially from Sophia. Was just waiting. Yeah, I mean it's an incredible movie. I have not watched it in a while. I should revisit it, but I do think that it is just like the best version of a political thriller that you could ever imagine. Just the steps that it takes to get you into this very meticulous investigation is just so engaging, and it's so riveting. And it's like my impression of it has always been like nothing is very too flashy. I mean, obviously there's some bits in there that are, but it really is just following the information, and that's what you're so riveted by. And I think that's the mark of really great storytelling.
Yeah, I rewatched it for my birthday a couple weeks ago.
Oh, wow.
It was like I wanted to watch something of comfort, and I put on All the President's Men. Says a lot about myself.
No, it's real.
And what I'm always struck by, this movie was released in 76. The events take place in 72, 73. So it's very timely. It's very bottleneck. I mean, we're literally doing events that just happened, and yet they feel so urgent. And I mean, there's so many great shots of it. I was nerding out that night, and there was the shot always of them in like the I guess it's Library of Congress, and they're going through the checked out books and everything, and the pan up of both of them going through these stacks, both Hoffman and Redford going through it, or the phone call the night of the nomination, where Nixon gets the nomination, and he's going back and forth between the two different people, and he gets them mixed up at a certain point, and Redford's just kind of smiling because he can't believe he's getting all this information. It's kind of a mess, but it's just the perfect film for old school journalism, trusting sources, having your back within it, as well as also, I mean, yeah, the deep throat, sort of sequences of "don't ever call me again on this phone," and it's super terrifying, and having to put the flag out there, and then the Gordon Willis is, I mean, I'm going to talk about him being the Prince of Darkness because, good Lord, those shots in the underground there in the parking lots and just having Hall Holbrook's voice for the most part being this just phantom figure within everything. It was reminding me of another film that we'll talk about here in a little bit in JFK, of just these reach outs and lifelines to these people desperate to uncover just the truth. And there's there's the great scene at the early on in the film where Redford is writing up the initial pieces of the information, and he throws part of it in ready for copy to go get edited, and Hoffman sees it, and he's just reading it, and he takes it, and Bernstein sort of takes it and then kind of starts rewriting it. And Redford does it again, kind of like, did he just do what I think he just did? Did he, like, Woodward's like, did he take my work? And he does it again, and they're both at this kind of odds with one another because they're both two different types of writers, like Sophia's saying, two different types of personality. One is very fast and loose, the other one's very by the book. And Redford just takes those notes and he slams them on his desk and he says, I don't like the way you did it. It's just, but if you're going to do it right, do it right. Get it done with the facts rather than hyperbole, which is what Bernstein was kind of known for at that time. And then right as that's said, their editor walks through and says, you're both on this, so good luck. And they both kind of look at each other. And from that moment on, they are a duo throughout everything. There's this tenseness when they have to play the operatic music in Woodward's apartment, and they're typing on the keyboard or on the typewriter, essentially, of like, we're being bugged. This whole thing is like, we're kind of screwed. And then what's so great about it is they release the piece. And then when they release the piece, there's then the response from the Nixon administration. It's all the big, juicy, meaty things that probably would be in something like, I don't know, The Post, which is like essentially the prequel to this movie. It's all done over just the telegraph of the newsreel at the end. You don't really get to see that. We're just seeing the process of this unfold. And it's fascinating. Pakula's just, he's like the master of these movies, Pakula of the paranoid thriller. But this is a masterpiece. And I always play the coin flip in my head of like, would I give Network or would I give All the President's Men Best Picture from that year and throw out Rocky? Because they're both masterpieces and they say a lot, I think, still about our time, both Network and this. So, but Erik doesn't like All the President's Men, so you can pick something out. Just kidding.
Boo, thumbs down. Terrible. Oh my God. What a waste. No, this is one of the best movies of that decade. And you mentioned how relatively soon it came out after the Watergate events. It's probably the thing that's so impressive about it because, new details and information came out decades later, just over so much more time. But it's able to have, such a detail and such scope for having only the information that it had. And so it just, I love it. And we've had so many Watergate movies since then.
Oh my God.
That have, benefited from more information and a longer period of time since the event. Sometimes you can make a film or a show or a play or whatever that is so close to the timeline that there isn't really enough distance to have a lot of objectivity to it or just really a lot of information. But this absolutely this does. It's
yeah. And I saw this in middle school. Oh yeah. No, I saw this in middle school and it started a Watergate phase for me. It was just so nerdy and weird, but I became really obsessed with learning more about Watergate. And I told Ryan this, but when I moved to DC, I got a Library of Congress library card because of this movie, because I wanted to go to all their little spots.
Come on.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Redford, he's the best. And he wears everything he wears. Imagine turning him away from your door. That's my
Word.
thing.
I
I'd be
mean,
like,
come
even
on
if
now.
I, worked for Nixon, I'd be like, come on in.
Come on in. Yeah. I'll tell you everything.
I'll
know
tell
what
you
I mean?
everything you want to know.
There's something also too
Mhm.
about like the two of them just like being like sad and depressed in a McDonald's. Very relatable.
Yeah,
You know
I
what
love
mean?
that.
So-
I love his gold chain.
oh
Like,
yeah.
what is this about?
Oh, when he's at the courthouse and then like that guy's like there and he's like the lawyer for them or whatever, and he keeps bugging him. I'm like, you can keep bugging me. This is totally fine.
Yeah.
Like you're not bothering anybody, baby. Yeah.
I love it. Welcome to the horny version of All the President's Men.
Wait,
Also
all the
known as
president's men.
men.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Emphasis on the men. Anyway, Eric, do you have a film that you love from the subgenre?
Yeah, this was kind of funny because I didn't. I mean, I have a list of political thrillers, but I then started really kind of leaning to very journalism and even photojournalism based things because of the movie that we just reviewed. And there are really so many where a journalist inserts themselves into a story a little too much, or they tweak facts a little bit too much to get their story. And I don't know, maybe this will not be too much of a surprise in that sense, but I immediately thought of Nightcrawler. And I obviously am obsessed with that movie. I think it is amazing. And actually, there's a second Jake Gyllenhaal movie that would be on my list for this conversation. But Nightcrawler really spoke to me in this sense, and at least it is a film with a point of view and a character with a motivation and a point of view, because he is, a photographer of like the dirtiest, darkest, kind of nastiest kind of things. But that need to kind of fill a high and a feeling of such a heightened sense of whatever, whether, I mean, he's not a war photographer like they are in Civil War, but all of the scenes that they're in are life-threatening and just of the moment. And in Nightcrawler, he's creating these scenes for himself, and I just find that absolutely fascinating as a character, but also just what it means for what any type of journalism is, even if it is low level, photojournalism trying to sell to a TMZ channel. You are still a photojournalist, even if you are not, covering the Gaza Strip. It's on the same timeline. It just is on the opposite end of the spectrum. So I kind of, that's where I really gravitated to, and definitely for something like Nightcrawler.
Yeah. Oh. Nightcrawler's I haven't seen it since it came out, and I think that movie was so upsetting to me. And I think that's kind of the point, is that, if you have any, I think going from All the President's Men to Nightcrawler is the two opposite.
Yeah, it's from heroic to the worst.
Well, it's from being patriotic to being cynical and vindictive and using the machine to your own advantage. It's very capitalistic in that mindset. I mean, and I think that it goes on the borderline of then obsession of trying to create your own narrative, and that's definitely within this kind of genre as well too. It's also, you're right, it's much more pronounced in this film than in something like Civil War. What do you guys like Nightcrawler? Sophia?
Yeah.
Josh?
Yeah,
I do.
I
I think it's a good movie. Definitely the best thing that Dan Gilroy has done. Outside of him not knowing how to pronounce Melancholy.
Oh.
That's the second best
Melancholy?
thing.
The
Yeah.
greatest.
That's just one of the that is one of the
That is
greatest
not the first time that's happened today.
Yeah.
Jake
best
said
moments
Jake.
ever.
That's
That's
when-
just like so attractive to me too from Jake.
Yeah.
Like how he corrects him.
How
I don't
frustrated he is. Yeah. You can tell that at that time he was dealing with a lot. That day, just press.
Yeah.
Probably
But it's a
having
good
to hear
movie.
that like 6 or 7 times.
Yeah, but I like Nightcrawler. I think it has so much fascinating things to say about just journalism and the state of of how it is today. And not that that is something that is completely new. The whole "if it bleeds, it leads" has been around for decades, but
Mhm.
the way that it chooses to explore it, wrapped up in this character study, I find to be really fascinating. And Rene Russo,
Mm.
absolutely great.
Ooh,
Like just
so
a
great.
perfect character for that movie that she just plays incredibly well.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
know.
Everyone's good. Riz Ahmed, absolutely fantastic
Oh,
too.
yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of people found him and where he really kind of
Yeah.
started to blow up.
Josh is never going to say a bad thing about Riz Ahmed.
How would you?
How you can never.
He is the hottest man on the planet. Like, obviously, I'm not going to
I'm
say.
gonna
I mean,
I'm gonna tell Ben Whishaw and Depp Patel you
Yeah.
said that.
This really has turned into the thirstiest episode somehow.
Damn right.
I liked Nightcrawler too. I also haven't seen it since it came out, but I remember when it came out really liking it, and the performances are really what stick with you. And I remember just thinking, Jake
I don't think it's
Gyllenhaal's
one
so
that-
creepy and good.
I don't think it's one that you want to because you're just like, I know what I'm gonna feel, but it's.
Oh,
I
I've
think that's
obviously seen it.
Well, I mean,
several
obviously,
times.
yeah. You're just. It's like it's actually playing on a loop in your house. I mean, like
I mean, it's a top tier performance from him for me, and that's there's that top tier is
all
like
of his
10
filmography. I'm just-
10 deep. So
Yeah, it's Roadhouse at
I
number
watched
one.
Roadhouse for him. Like, that says it all.
I mean, I did. Thank you. I did too. I have watched things.
I
that
unfortunately did as well.
don't ever want to see again. But
No,
my
no,
commitment.
no.
is
We're all
real.
guilty of it. Believe me.
Yeah.
That-
We've all
there have been some things
for
with Ben Whishaw in it that I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
The things I do for this man.
exactly. We've all done it.
Yeah.
Josh, do you have a favorite, a couple favorites maybe from this?
Well, you already mentioned it. I was gonna have this be my first one anyway, and that is JFK, which I just got on 4K as well, and it
hell
looks amazing. And
Start the
I
clock.
love this movie.
Here we go.
This movie, even though so much of it I disagree with, and it sounds like it is the rantings of a lunatic, I don't care. I love that it. Well, I mean, I know, but
I mean,
but a lot of it just feels like you are just in the mind of somebody who has 1,000 red strings on a clipboard, and is just, you are tracing it all over the place, and you don't know where these ends are going to, and it circles in on itself. But it's so fascinating to just track all of that. And even if I personally maybe don't agree with much of its thesis, I don't really care. I believe that the characters in this movie believe it, and that's the thing that is important. And that journey is what I find so fascinating, that no matter how many rabbit holes it digs through, I'm just like, I want to know more. I want to know more. I'm just so fascinated in this conspiracy that it is building. And it's also just so incredible considering how many people are in this movie too. There are so many characters to keep track of. And yet I still feel a sense of orientation whenever we do go to these different locations, go to these different characters, and every scene is a standout. And I love this movie so much. It's crazy. It is insane, but I love it.
Yeah. Sophia, did you want to say something?
Yeah, of course. Do I want to talk about JFK?
Do you want? Are you sure? I don't know.
Am I sure? I actually saw this movie in theaters for the first time in theaters. I had seen it before, but on the big screen, it was a totally different experience because you're so locked in a few weeks ago at this point. So it's pretty fresh in my mind. And you are really just, Josh, even though I disagree with a lot of the theories and everything that they're saying, there's a certain moment in the movie when Kevin Costner's giving that monologue where I'm like, do I believe this actually? Could I be converted? Am I a conspiracy theorist? I get it now. And I think that that's just the power of his performance and just how this movie's constructed, because what I really love about it and find so enthralling is that it is edited and cut together and constructed in a way that I think mirrors Garrison's energy. Like everything that you are feeling as you're watching the movie, I think matches that character. And that's really hard to do, I think, from a crafts perspective. Also have to say, the Donald Sutherland scene,
Oh,
there's just nothing better. I love a one scene wonder in a movie. And when he shows up and we have that shot of the two of them just sitting in front of the monument, it's glorious. I love it. I think it's such a fun movie. And I am not an Oliver Stone person. Like, not a director for me, but I love JFK.
it's on Sophia's Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, of course. It's like, again, him, Taika
Gotta have a
Waititi,
DVD
Adam
commentary.
McKay.
Yeah. Ruben Ostlund. Those are guys. I just watched this again last night. I watched the director's cut on 4K. Masterpiece. I love it so much. I mean, there's a lot of what Josh said is absolutely correct. That this is the most insane cast ever put together of the time. There's a reason why Nolan and editor Jennifer Lame used a lot of like the way this movie's edited as inspiration for Oppenheimer, and is what they talked about last year, because it feels like that. It feels like having this giant ensemble, having these veteran actors come in for just one scene and absolutely like destroy everything. Is great.
John Candy, love.
I mean, listen.
Oh my God, yeah.
You're as crazy as your mama.
Yeah. I mean, like you have like Pesci in like this terrible wig. You have also this like the silver hair of Tommy Lee Jones, and Kevin Bacon's playing a cowboy twink, and yet like you're just able to buy all of it because it's the most ridiculous premise. And the one keeping it all stable is Costner, who's, you can clearly like, oh yeah, this is like the movie star to do this, to make this like legitimate. And yeah, by the end of it, when he's sitting there and back to the left, my head's like, yes, he's right. Yes, he's right. Because the whole argument of the film is that it's not to prove that everything in this conspiracy is 100% right. It is to prove that there is a little bit of a doubt into the investigation that is put into and is responsible for us as Americans to ask questions to something as important as the assassination of a president, when there's so much evidence and there's so much that seems to contradict itself the more you start unraveling it. And then also the fact that all those documents are hidden and classified and put away until about 5 years from now, and everything. And why would you do all that? And why would you take the Schrader film? And why would you do all this? And the fact that like the scene that really always makes me so angry is when they won't let the guy booking Tommy Lee Jones come to the stand, and when Kevin Costner goes, "That's our whole case," and the judge goes, "Well, if that was your whole case, you didn't really have much of one, did you?" And that's like, what the fuck? And then at that point, it's like, I don't know if everything is right. I don't know if Joe Pesci and Tommy Lee Jones did a bunch of poppers in New Orleans or whatever. I don't care about any of that. At this point, you're rooting for them. The Sissy Spacek stuff at home is a little like, all right, Oliver, you could probably cut a little bit of that out, since it does like no thanks to her whatsoever.
So I will say she always comes in my mind whenever we get to Easter.
Yeah.
I just always feel for her.
I thought
that in the middle of Easter Sunday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like, he wrote it on the calendar. What do you want? More do you want from him, man? Like it's so
you schedule something in the middle of Easter Sunday.
It's like what's so great about it when I was watching it last night, and she gets so angry at him for continuing the case, but yet she just saw that her husband on television was told to have bribed witnesses, to like throw, Tommy Lee Jones under the bus. His whole reputation is like shot to hell. So of course he's got to defend it. And she's like, you just can't be at home one night to be with your son and play catch in the yard or whatever bullshit. And you're like, and it's like, what are you talking about, lady? He's uncovering a conspiracy to like, for the president of the United States. It's so ridiculous. But yes, Donald Sutherland, absolutely fantastic. Costner's monologue. I mean, Costner throughout the 90s and in the 2000s and even now has questionable acting. abilities at best. And yet he is as convincing as a lawyer as in that moment as I've ever seen on film. He's fantastic. It feels like it's a oneer at a certain point, and you have it spliced with this editing team that won the Oscar that also has like additional editing from Hank Corwin, who clearly learned all the wrong tactics after this movie for the rest of his career. And it's just a master class of like, it's a 3 hour and 40-minute movie. And I'm like, both of you just kind of can't stop looking at this. I feel like a moth to a flame every time I watch this movie. It's like, I know I shouldn't do it, but I'm going to put on JFK at least maybe twice a year, and I'm going to watch this.
It's like an experimental movie,
and
the way that it's constructed.
It made $200 million at the box office on a $40 million budget. Like, that's kind of insane that, like, everyone was like, yeah, you know what? The guy that's won 2 Best Director Oscars, yeah, let him cash in all of his money just to make this vast conspiracy theory movie. And, I mean, yeah, if you think that the Warren Commission's all right, then I don't know what that says about you as an American. So anyway, Erik, do you believe in all the conspiracy theories in the film? I kind of feel like you do.
So before the age that we're in now, the Trump era, where every single thing is a conspiracy and half of the country was super gullible, we used to believe in 3 conspiracies only. There was Bigfoot, there was Area 51, and there was the JFK assassination.
Well, and the moon
Those
landing.
were the classics. The moon landing,
side genre.
Those are the real
bit less so.
Yeah.
But those, but like the ones that had real
meat and
gravity to them.
Yeah, real meat and potatoes.
Were those 3? And again, very much like All the President's Men, the amount of information, constantly evolving. Information came out as a result of the movie.
Yep.
I think this is an A+ masterpiece. Easily Stone's best film. It's not even close. I love every second of the ridiculousness of this, of arguably one of the greatest casts ever assembled, and really perfect casting too. Old Man Oswald is
he's so good,
fucking out of control. How good that casting is. Joe Pesci and Tommy Lee Jones having their fucking Marie Antoinette fucking baggy ass moment.
Yeah.
Where in the world does that even come from? Or who are you as a director to even get them to do that and go there? Absolutely
knowing
insane.
Who those actors are too.
Yes.
And at that time,
in 91,
91, he's just coming off of doing Goodfellas.
Pesci just won. It's
Lee Jones is about to win his Oscar for the Fugitive.
Fugitive.
It's wild.
Crazy. Yeah. But yes, it's not that I was or am some big conspiracy theorist believer. It's conspiracy theories are really fun in a totally removed way. I mean, if you live your life by a conspiracy theory, my goodness. I feel sorry for you and everybody around you. But it's fun in a National Enquirer kind of way. And again, that's kind of where we were at this point in time. In 91, we were, the United States was like, National Enquirer was kind of fun, but everybody knew that, it was ridiculous and stupid and bullshit. So this movie sort of both preyed upon every possible theorist like musings, but also felt, even in its crazy editing and multiple film stocks and everything, felt so absolutely grounded, believable, possible. And honestly, if you even want to believe in any conspiracy theory, any type of confirmation bias that you can get is something that you will hold on to get there. And that's kind of what JFK does. It will make a believer out of a non-believer, and it will take anyone that was already there absolutely like a soldier for it. Which, I think you can, maybe read as dangerous.
That's also extremely effective, right?
It's, if you create art only to not bother stupid people, what are you doing? Please do something else. So no, I was not obsessed with it in the 90s, but I was deeply, deeply into this, and I haven't seen it in a really long time, and I think I will have to watch.
Yeah, you got to buy the director's cut.
Mm-hmm.
It's $50, but it's worth it.
I probably won't do that.
Seeing in theaters, like if you can see it in a theater, it was.
Well,
I mean, I definitely saw it first run in the theater, but
yeah.
I definitely haven't seen a director's cut version.
Yeah, and that director's cut is 205 minutes, so it adds 20 minutes to an already 3-hour and 8-minute movie.
That was the one I just saw too.
Yeah,
it's like okay,
worth it. Wow. I mean, this is very worth a 3+ hour.
Yeah, you want to add more 100%. To it? Go right on ahead and do so. Like it's. I mean, like I just think of like anyone that like doesn't like the film or calls it propaganda or whatever. It's like, yeah, but like the line of dialogue that Donald Sutherland says about, we would have had all these people in the buildings and we would have been there 2 days before and we would have scoped everything out and we would have had all these people there. And it's like, yeah, because now as viewers, we know what a movie looks like when like all that, like, even if it's not a movie like about a politician, like I was thinking about Nolan while I was doing this. And it's like, there's that scene in The Dark Knight when it's like the mayor passes away or whatever, and there's these snipers everywhere on the rooftops looking for the Joker and everything. And then there's that one where like the window opens and Christian Bale's in there and somebody fires upon him. And I was thinking about like back to this scene where it's like, yeah, there would be all this police presence. There wouldn't be an 11-mile-an-hour car. The magic bullet theory is like, I don't know. That's like the theory, it's like, okay, sure. Maybe this person wasn't connected to this and maybe Oswald wasn't in Russia, but can you explain to me how this one bullet like had caused like the greatest amount of wounds? Oh, and by the way, the casing is perfect. Like it's not, rusted or whatever. It's like the movie is doing exactly what you're saying. You're the purpose of a movie like this, which is it is supposed to provoke conversation and doubt and make us all just kind of question, okay, well, what is our place in a kind of, as an American, are we supposed to just get fed the slop, or are we supposed to provoke and ask questions? Because that's kind of what the founders asked of us to. And it's, I mean, like Oliver Stone at this time, he had like Platoon and he had like Born on the 4th of July. He makes a movie about Nixon a couple years later that sucks. But like, he's like he's earned the trust of an audience to be quote unquote kind of patriotic. And even though he shows a very cynical side in those movies, to then do this, it's like, okay, all my goodwill that, I've gained from you guys, I'm cashing the chips in for you to finally realize that like, yeah, everything was kind of bullshit. And so, yeah, it's a perfect movie. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
There's I mean, obviously, you guys mentioned a couple films, from a couple weeks back, to where like when you guys did the spy movies, like I mean, like the Conversation was one that I thought of, and the Bourne movies, especially the sequels like Supremacy and Ultimatum. Those are movies where like it deeply goes into more than just being about like, oh, he lost his memory, to being about a CIA government agency creating these weapons, these weaponized human beings in order to then, be taken down by Bourne from the inside out. I thought a lot about The Hunt for Red October, which was a movie that is right, perfect for its era of the sort of, between the U.S. and Russia and continuing to be an ongoing Just, not a great friendship between the two countries, the United States and Russia. But, obviously Tom Clancy, those books were huge. And you have like Patriot Game and Clear and Present Danger that are also very much of those eras. But I think this one, because of the way it politically is going to structure and looks at every side of this argument, and everything's so tense between these submarines and these people that are, it's essentially about Sean Connery and these and these Russian led members of the Navy who are wanting to defect and go to the United States and hand over this weaponry, but yet the United States does not trust Russia, obviously. And the one that it's interpreting all of this is Jack Ryan, who's played by Alec Baldwin in the film. And it is just this complete taut cat and mouse game between both sides. And this, what is always lingering throughout this entirety is the amount of untrust that these countries have between one another. And at any moment, literally, there is a moment in this movie where you forget about the other submarine that's being headed by Stellan Skarsgård, and you think everything's fine, like they've wrapped up this movie, and then, oh, that's right, I got 25 more minutes, and this submarine of danger just comes out of nowhere, because at any point between these two sides, for the kind of entirety of their history post World War II, they have been opposed to one another, and so the danger is always going to be lingering. And McTiernan just does a fantastic job of sort of conveying that. It's a little hokey in terms of like trying to say like the way in which it does this thing where like Connery does a little bit of Russian at the beginning, and then it kind of shifts direct. It's an interesting way that McTiernan does the direction where he then like shifts it so then like they can all speak English, but they're actually speaking in Russian. It's funny. It's really, really campy, and there's a lot of fun to it, and like sometimes, it's a good decision because I don't want to hear Sean Connery in Russian for like for 2 hours plus,
nor even attempt a Russian accent. Because,
it's full on Scottish.
But remember when he tried to speak Japanese in a James Bond movie. So we don't need a repeat of that. But that movie, 100 Red October, weirdly was a film that was an obsession of mine when I was like 10 years old. Even though I probably didn't know what was going on, but I think it was just, it's got Sean Connery and Tim Curry is in it, and it's got people that I just really love, and that was the thing that I attached myself to. So I haven't seen it since I was a kid, but I remember really just having a fascination with it. And McTiernan is just like a perfect action thriller director.
Yeah. Have you seen, Sophia, have you seen?
I have, yeah. Okay. I was going to say, the last time I watched this was maybe in middle school. This was a TNT movie.
Hell yeah, it was.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So that was, and my dad really loved it, I remember. So I was like, I need to watch this. And
it's a total dad movie.
I was really young, and I haven't returned to it, but I will.
It's on Max, I think. All the Jack Ryan movies are on Max, but this is the best one. Erik, you saw Hunt for Red October in theater. Yeah, it's good.
It's good. I like it.
Wow, that's like that's fine, and then move along.
Yeah. It's fine.
You got another one that you love, rather than
I do, but it was funny because I was again thinking of where like the through lines for Civil War are, or maybe even possible inspirations from Garland. And there is a movie called The Hunting Party with Richard Gere and Terrence Howard and Jesse Eisenberg.
Oh, I've seen that one.
From like 2007. That kind of follows a similar path of like veteran, newbie, questionable morals guy as they navigate war correspondence. And I'm like, I kind of feel like Garland must have seen this and thought he could do better. It's not a good movie, but it's certainly it certainly has to be an inspiration because it's just too specific of a through line of characters. No, I mean I alluded to it earlier, but Zodiac, I put right alongside the best journalist movies of all time, but I don't know. I don't know how it fits really in this. Maybe it does. I guess it does. It's not a political thriller. it's a journalism thriller, and I kind of just I got myself stuck in a loop
Well,
of really journalist stories and movies. But I do think that Zodiac is just one of those where he's not even really a journalist, but he becomes
no,
the story.
he's a cartoonist.
Yeah, he
Well, and
becomes it
Downey's a
by
journalist. Yeah.
yeah by trying to by trying to get there, and I find that as a storytelling device to be so very very compelling.
Yeah.
Somebody that just gets in over their head. It's
Yeah.
I mean how it's a classic device, but I just think I think Zodiac, I think Fincher, Gyllenhaal, just do that almost better than anybody with this movie. It's just such a top tier journalist movie for me.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
if you want to tie it into some sort of like political structure, I mean, like the idea of that, our systems are supposed to be trustworthy. They're supposed to be able to find these answers. This is a movie that is entirely about all those systems falling apart within oneself. I mean, that's where Toschi, played by Mark Ruffalo, he's going along with this journal, as well as also too, there's when Graysmith does go along the journey to go and try to piece this all together, he is going through multiple departments, both in San Francisco as well, these small kind of county police officers, as well as also talking, getting all these records from mayoral offices and things. And there is political push and pull to end this obsession of this investigation to ready to ease the mind of the public. Like that's the kind of thing that makes JFK sort of fascinating is throughout the entire film, everyone telling Costner as he's become obsessive down the rabbit hole to kind of stop before he gets ahead of himself. And I think that's where, Graysmith, played by Gyllenhaal, he kind of is at himself by the end of that film too.
And honestly, this also falls in line with one of the US's biggest conspiracy stories, because it is an unsolved story, and the theories of who it would be or could be continue to exist.
It's Ted Cruz.
Fascinating.
It's Ted Cruz.
Well, I mean, yes, we know really that it is Ted Cruz, but mainstream media is not ready to believe
they're
that
not
yet.
ready for that one. Yeah,
Too deep state.
No, I love that. Sophia, you were gonna say something?
Yeah, no, I love Zodiac. I didn't think of it for this, but I think you're right. Like most journalists or journalism movies are inherently political in some way or another. I think we tend to think of political thrillers sometimes as being, tied up in the White House somehow or these larger wars. But I think like you were saying, Ryan, this being so tied up in systems and their failure to protect people. That's a huge part of it. And this is the best Fincher movie, I think. You could make the case for many, but it's my favorite. In a similar, I would say the next one that I have is really a movie about movie making too, but I almost forgot this was a political thriller because it also feels, wrapped up in surveillance and, thinking about the idea of someone getting too involved in something that really isn't their thing. Brian De Palma's Blowout. This is one of my favorite movies ever. I would have been back on the thirst thread of this episode. I would have been so obsessed with John Travolta in the early 80s. I just know it if I lived back then based on this movie. He's very much a Sophia man. But I think that this really is just a perfect paranoia thriller to me about someone who the character here, really, I think John Travolta's character, he works in sound. And when he captures this sound, accidentally recording a political assassination, he gets swept up in something that is completely out of his league. And I love movies where characters find themselves in situations like that, and how Nancy Allen gets involved in all of that too. And I think in political thrillers too, when the characters who you're following, your protagonists, are just always too small to defeat the system or to really solve it in the end in a way that makes you feel good. And this ending is just one of my favorites. It's really brutal and bleak. And John Travolta's line delivery of "it's a good scream" is one of my favorites. So I had to recommend Blowout.
I saw that movie.
What a great choice.
I saw that movie in college, and my professor, he was doing trilogies to sort of, compare and contrast different styles and whatnot. And he showed Blowout and Blow Up in the conversation as all these paranoid sort of thrillers, or just the use of paranoia within filmmaking. And yeah, that movie, God, it's just one of the most beautiful movies ever. I think there's a 4K now of it out on Criterion as well. One of De Palma's best. And yeah, Travolta, one of his best performances too. Yeah, I absolutely love that movie. Absolutely love that movie. Josh, do you like that? Have you seen Blow Up?
I have.
Oh.
No. I have to say that for me personally,
oh boy,
I've never really been a big De Palma fan. There's like one or two movies
that makes
that I
sense.
would call exceptional.
Like there's some people that are kind of about him.
Just for me, I've never really been that attracted to his filmography. I find that he is a lot of style over substance, and I've never been that into them personally. For me, I know that a lot of people love De Palma. I know, but like outside of like Carrie, just never really been a big fan. But I appreciate the craft of his movies for sure. I do, and there is a lot of craft in that one. And I know that I am in the extreme minority opinion when it comes to De Palma, but I do understand why people like his work, and I understand why people would like that movie a lot.
Yeah. He's not one of my go-tos either. It's really this one and Carrie for me. But yeah, this one, I think it just like hit me at the right age too. When I saw it, I was like, oh, yeah.
Josh, I get it. I do. He's just never really been for me.
Gotcha. Josh, is there somebody or a movie that you do love that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I did also want to mention, and like, I'm sorry to bring up this man, but
there we go.
Ghost Rider, I do think is really good.
It is a really good movie.
I really like it. I know it's directed by the devil. I understand, but it is like, to me, watching that movie felt like I was watching a 70s political thriller. It felt like a throwback to me. And I thought it was just so like pulpy and fun. And it doesn't have any more staying power outside of that. But just as a kind of, as I said, a throwback 1970s political thriller, I thought it was just perfectly executed. So I love that movie because it's just so fun, even though I feel guilty about saying this.
No, it's fine.
Fun.
No, yeah. I mean, it's
great.
It's a really good movie.
You're in good company with me.
Yeah.
Brosnan's
movies.
Yeah,
it's
that movie's
okay.
Brosnan's incredible in that movie, and so is McGregor. Like it's very tense, and like last 20 minutes of that movie, I just remember when I watched it, I was like on the edge of my seat. Just like, what the hell is going to happen in this movie? So, and yeah, I mean, it is the idea of like just a simple writer kind of getting sucked up into a vast conspiracy within this entire company, really within this figure. It's one figure, which is much more interesting because usually it's an entire machine, but really it is about, getting wrapped up within this person he's profiling to the point where the person he's profiling is the most dangerous person on the planet. So that I do like that kind of twist on it as well. There's so many movies I could mention. I mean, I could be that person and be like, well, if Eric's going to mention Dan Gilroy, I can mention Tony Gilroy, and I can just mention Michael Clayton, but I talk about that movie enough, which, I mean, technically it kind of is. I mean, it's a legal thriller, but it is about a giant, conspiracy to, what Tilda Swinton's doing in that entire movie is covering up a conspiracy. And
I'll see another movie that feels a bit like a 70s throwback.
Oh, absolutely.
Very much so.
Yeah. I mean, like we don't see movies like that every now and then. I mean, obviously, I think it's Clooney's best performance. I go back and forth between it's like top 5 film from 2007, right up there with Zodiac to me. And I just think, it's such a masterclass of tension throughout that. I mean, like every time I'm watching that movie and there's the scene where the two guys, like the guys that are putting the car bomb into the CD player, and Clooney comes out of the underground casino or whatever, like early, and he's just like, and they're like, you got 10 seconds, you got 5 seconds, he's right there. It's just always building that tension. Also, to the shout out to whoever made that fucking bread. It's incredible. Tom Wilkinson's extraordinary performance in that. Sometimes I think, is it as good as Anton Chigurh? And sometimes I do have to tell myself to stop thinking that. But then other times I'm like, yeah, it is.
Well, keeping in line with problematic men. I also
we talking about you now? Oh, sorry.
It made me think of The Year of Living Dangerously with Mel Gibson, and Salvador with James Woods. Both really great films. Both horrible men now. This is the problematic man podcast.
I know. I thought it was. We were talking about men that we
hot men to problematic men.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's usually how it goes, really, in real life. To be fair,
but yeah, I mean, again, those were journalists in hotbed situation kind of stories and really great movies for their time.
I mean,
that I really liked.
If we're on this trajectory, we could just talk about Parallax View, and we can talk about Warren Beatty. I mean, which is a movie I watched. I mean,
I love Warren Beatty.
If it's like the Pakula sort of paranoid trilogy with All the President's Men, Clute, and Parallax View, I think Parallax View, honestly, is the most interesting one of the three. Just kind of the lore of this hidden society and that this journalist is kind of go down. I think though it's the lesser of the three because like it doesn't tap fully into the absolute interesting potential of like what this society is and who is in control. And it at one point it's like, it almost looks like, it feels like a Dukes of Hazzard like episode because like he's in this like small town, like, you know, fighting this sheriff and hitting this other guy
on the WB backlot.
Yeah. It's very like, what the fuck is this movie? But like the set piece of the final like place there in the auditorium and everything is so good. And also it's got like, it reminded me a lot of like the shot in Network too, of where Ned Beatty was at and how far away the table is there when he's like ranting and raving, because like the way in which Pakula like presents this row of judges that are handing out sentences, right, that and information that we're all to believe because based off their investigations, very Senate hearing like. It then alludes back to JFK where you're just like, oh, so there's just it's 5 guys in a room making the decisions that we're all supposed to believe, and we're just supposed to like just take it at face value, and there's nothing inherently wrong about that at all. There's nothing like, you know, terrible about that as a society. We didn't vote on these men, but you know, they certainly think that very high of themselves. But yeah, and like it you know, Warren Beatty running around in like the early 70s is a genre for Sophia and many women alike.
It's true. I agree though about the Parallax View being, it's just a strange movie and it wasn't embraced in its time either. And I think has sort of gotten a new evaluation as time has passed, especially I think in looking at that trilogy of All the President's Men, the Parallax View and Clute. Yeah, it's number 3 if you're gonna rank them, but it's a good rewatch.
It's a good movie.
It's gripping, yeah, and I love Beatty in roles like that one too.
Yeah, so
very Beatty.
It's a very Beatty role. Do you guys have any others you guys want to mention? I feel like there's tons. There's tons we can talk about.
I mean, I just kind of kept moving around. Oh, go ahead, Josh.
Yeah.
But yeah, go ahead.
Well, there's one that I would mention just more so on the level of like, this is not a serious movie. It is just mostly like, it's kind of junk, but I just find it to be very fun. And that's Day of the Jackal.
Oh, okay.
Yes, that's on my list.
Yeah. Like, not a serious movie in the slightest. It actually gets very ridiculous kind of towards the end, which in ways that I actually kind of like. But that's what I like about it, is that it is very kind of silly and it's not meant to be taken seriously at all, but it's so thoroughly entertaining. So that was one I was thinking of. And another one that in a similar vein that I just find to be so ridiculous, and I think I even might have mentioned this on the Spy one, I'm not sure, but it was Capricorn 1. And the reason why I love that one so much is because it is such a great example of how much distrust there was after Watergate and like anything government related, that this movie could come out that basically tries to sell you on the idea that even NASA is trying to hunt down people and kill them because the premise of that one is that they're essentially trying to get to the moon or Mars or whatever, some space exploration. They have a malfunction and so they fake it, but the craft on the way back crashes and they're assumed dead, but they're not dead. So they're on the run and literally NASA is sending out assassins to kill them. Like it's so silly and ridiculous, but it's a great example of just where the culture was in the 70s and how much distrust, like anything related to the government, no matter what innocuous department it was, there was something nefarious going on. And to watch a movie where NASA is the villain is just very, very funny.
That's great.
This is what the 70s remain the greatest decade of filmmaking.
It's just got these weird little movies in there.
Because everything was cut free. All of the strings to what was allowed were completely cut free, and there's never been a freer decade to tell stories about the government and pending nuclear disaster and things like that in a way that were either fanciful or real. It's weird. Like you can have a movie like Marathon Man, or you can have 3 Days of the Condor. You know what I mean? That are perfect for that. I mean, also you get to have 3 Days of the Condor. It's just Robert Redford. I'm just thinking about him at the end of that movie. Yeah. Which then kind of like very great coat, which then also kind of like then feeds into like something like Spy Game down the road when he does that with Tony Scott, and sort of like a callback almost film to that. Not that it's the same, not that it's a continuation, but it just feels like, I
do like that movie though. I like Spy Game.
Yeah, I like that a lot too.
Spy Game's great.
Yeah. I mean, I really like Zero Dark 30, which is again another movie that's completely about obsession.
That's on my list too.
To me, I mean, I think Bigelow's just great at building tension throughout her films. She really understands how to do that. Again, another movie that was a topic that was very much like right as it happened, and we were still uncovering everything. But then also too, like people almost had the opposite of what a JFK was. Like we were essentially presenting this moment in history and this, all these facts, maybe not the actual people's names, but we were presenting this evidence and how this event was uncovered, and then to have the backlash to it of these senators and congressmen getting so angry at the way the movie depict torture, even though that these were the same people that signed off on the fucking torture in the first place, or saying that it's too triumphant. It's like it's a big moment that you all wanted. Like, you all voted this way for years, but I think Bigelow kind of takes away the party politics and just focuses entirely on an operative's, an analyst's obsession in trying to do her job and to do something that is the objective, and even against all odds. Like, I mean, like that scene with Kyle Chandler that Chastain has, which obviously is like her Oscar scene or whatnot, but still, it's like you feel the force of like, I am the only one doing this and only one that cares. And at a certain point by the end, which the raid sequence, which is absolutely fantastic, I almost kind of forget about that, and just the relief that she has there on the carrier, right? That's going to take her home. I was just like, it's finally done. And it's so wonderful. And yeah, I mean, like,
but it's solo and solitary and not celebratory.
No, it's like
in the way that so many of these things have been, and certainly for men. So it's such a great presentation of such a lone victory,
an important victory, but yet it's just so like it's relief. It's not celebratory, like you're saying, Eric. Yeah, I love that movie so much.
Oh, it's fantastic.
Chastain, I would have given her the Oscar that year, but yeah. Oh, I got a lot of bad looks there. Okay.
That's a choice.
Team Reva, but
that is a choice.
Now
you have to live with it.
I would have given her that over Tammy Faye, though, like so that we can not have the Tammy Faye win. Prevents a lot.
What accomplishment is that?
I mean, it's given it to a very good performance. I don't know.
I'm just saying comparatively though, like yes, there are many things that we would prefer over.
I think Ryan was just trying to make up ground after he realized it was.
I don't know. Like everybody seemed
spicy
to like
hot take.
I know. Evidently, I gave like the hottest take, and I think that mine's a pretty actually basic take. Because I mean, everyone. It was for Emmanuel Riva, I guess.
I do like Quvenzhané Wallace.
Well, no, I mean mine's really for Quvenzhané Wallace, but
Yeah.
Riva would be second, and Chastain would be third.
I don't like Beast of the Southern Wild, but okay.
Another
That's another
mistake.
podcast for another
well,
day.
we all
Steak
know that
take.
Jennifer Lawrence should not have won. We can agree on that.
Correct.
Yeah, that's the bottom line is that, and she was fifth.
Who was the other?
Naomi Watts for
Naomi.
The Impossible.
Who's actually really good.
She's good.
As much as I drag her to hell and back.
I mean, not undeserved, unfortunately.
Not undeserved.
It's not, because actually all the kids in the movie are better than her.
Tom Holland, right?
Yeah, Tom Holland's great, but the two
Right,
little
man.
boys, fantastic.
Okay. Any other films you guys want to mention in the political thrillers category before it turns into a 2012 retrospective almost?
Oh,
We've
that'll be fun when we get to that.
We've really run the gamut here on so many.
Okay, well, Eric, then just go down a
so
list of
many
honorable
things.
mentions that you want to just kind of give a shout out to for the listeners to watch this week.
Munich
Yeah.
was on
That's
my
very
list.
timely. Yeah.
Like I said to Josh, I also had Dave the Jackal, China Syndrome, The Insider.
Oh, I forgot about. Why did I forget about
too.
The
I
Insider?
forgot about that.
Why did I
Yeah.
forget about that? That is completely a political thriller.
Yeah, The Insider's top tier, I think, in this.
It's my favorite Michael
and then,
Mann movie.
You know, journalism stuff. I was thinking of Shattered Glass again, because for some reason, like Hayden Christensen, like little fan cams keep popping up on TikTok and aren't like specifically Star Wars and have like Shattered Glass moments, and his
Sarsgaard
like, you
in that
know,
movie too.
his hair, his movie where he had blue hair and all whatever.
Life is a House.
Yes, or whatever it was.
Came
Yeah.
dangerously close to an Oscar nomination for that movie.
Yeah, dangerously is the correct word. Yeah,
I chose my words carefully.
Yeah, but I think I love Shattered Glass. Great journalism movie. Fantastic journalism movie.
Okay. Sophia, do you have some honorable mentions?
I also had Day of the Jackal on my list, so another good 70s one. And then I'm going to recommend a John Huston double here. So Chinatown, we will talk about down the road. It fits in nicely with a theme we have coming up that I won't share, but where I'll talk about it, where it fits, I think, a little bit better. But it is a political thriller. It's a slow burn, but the water wars and how they come into the story very much fit into a political thriller. And the other Houston one that I'll mention is a very odd movie from 1979 called Winter Kills. It is so strange. And I don't know if I can entirely, recommend it, I would say, as like a movie that I love, because I was very perplexed
It's out
after
there.
seeing it.
Yeah.
It's very strange. Jeff Bridges is so young in it, but it certainly fits into the political thriller camp. I saw it at Film Forum just last year. They were doing a new print of it, and it's, it fits. It tries, I think, to be a serious thriller at times and just goes into full camp at other moments. So check it out. It's an oddball.
Josh?
I love the poster quote on that. Bursting with a crazy vitality all its own. It's like that's the best that we could
1970s.
find. It's not a poorly reviewed movie. It's a really well reviewed movie, but that quote is hilarious.
That is funny.
Yeah. Josh?
I think the only other one that I want to mention is a movie that certainly is a lot more somber than your traditional kind of political thriller, but there is a thriller element to it. There is a ticking clock that these characters are going through, and that's the movie Failsafe.
Yes.
Which it's like
Sidney
one of the
Lumet.
most devastating movies I've ever seen. I don't watch it very often because it
It's a
just
lot.
pummels you emotionally, but it does represent a particular political environment and desperately trying to get ahead of certain events to try to prevent something. So there is sort of a thriller element to it. And I just think it is exceptionally well made. I mean, Sidney Lumet, one of the greats. He was always one of my favorite filmmakers. And I just think that movie, as I said, it is devastating especially when you get to the end. But I think it is extremely well done.
Big antithesis to like Doctor Strangelove, almost like they're like a good double bill. Like you want like the more serious kind of depressing
And
version
with Doctor Strangelove, though.
Yeah, and it was Strangelove, please.
Yes.
Much more enjoyable version of it. But yeah, like the Met's great, Fonda, fantastic. In that. Like it's it's on Criterion. Yeah, I did a Lumet rabbit hole last year, and it was one of the stronger. Great. It was one of the stronger films. I mean, like The Manchurian Candidate is a film that we didn't mention, but I think you guys mentioned it a couple weeks ago.
We mentioned it on that. Last episode.
It's kind of
Manchurian Candidate, also one of the greatest movies ever made.
Yeah. No Way Out. I'm surprised Erik didn't mention No Way Out.
Because I like
Costner. Well, yeah, because your mind wasn't there, right?
No, but like Sophia said at the top, I didn't want to overlap with the.
Oh, did
spy
you guys?
one.
Did you guys mention that last week?
Yeah.
Or a couple weeks ago? Okay.
Yeah, no, it was. I mean, these were in the spy ones already, and I wanted to.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I wasn't there, so I can I can say it. That movie, Hackman, Costner, fantastic film. I mean, that movie is again like. Different, allegiances and who's on whose side, and the idea of state secrets being in a Cold War at the time too. Like you're kind of trying to figure out who's the right person there. I mean, I did think about I did rewatch Syriana this week. Hang on, can I say what I think about it first? It's fine.
Sure.
Yeah. Mostly like it just for Jeffrey Wright's performance, but outside of it, like if there's a better Clooney movie that year, and it's good night and good luck, but that doesn't qualify for this list.
Horrible Oscar win.
I don't disagree. Calm down.
Horrible.
I mean, it's not good.
I'm just making sure.
Just getting in there. All right.
Yeah.
The Report, Adam Driver, that film a couple of years ago. I really, really liked that film a lot. That one is more subdued, more than just kind of like, it goes back to more like what Erik, you were kind of alluding to, more like somebody that's just kind of like essentially very tactical and doing their job. And I guess all the looks that I got there. I
think it's just Benning as Feinstein.
I was gonna say, I just remembered Annette Bening was in that, and then
another Naiad
the new movie with Daisy Ridley that's like a Naiad prequel.
Oh, Naiad!
Oh yeah,
Naiad Jr.
Yes.
Oh yeah, Naiad Jr.
I saw that trailer
Little
before
Naiad.
Civil War.
I love Lil Naiad.
A movie I also know that Erik hates, but I really like, and we talked about it on Director Watch during the Todd Haynes series, which is Dark Waters. And yeah, I knew I was gonna get that face.
I like that movie.
I like that movie a lot.
I do feel bad that that's Anne Hathaway's Todd Haynes role.
Yeah,
I mean, sure.
Like she should have a May December type.
She could have. Oh, she could have been good
Roll
as the
with him.
Portman character too. Probably.
Yeah,
not,
very. Yeah, she very could have.
Yeah,
that
she-
movie
No,
though,
t-
I will always remember watching that film with a crowd, and when the like last credits were shown to tell you like how much of that substance is in everything, my audience was like gasping.
They were like, "Shit."
It was a pretty impactful.
It can't be
moment.
that bad. Oh crap! You know what I mean? Yeah. It's one of those. Obviously, the Bridge of Spies, The Post. If you want to do that sort of the Spielberg, later Spielberg films. In the line,
We're just naming like 105 films now.
Yeah.
In the Line of Fire. It's a good Clint Eastwood film as well. And then Argo. Obviously,
Yeah,
Argo.
I had it on my list and then decided not to say it.
So you were just like, you were like Argo, and you're like, Argo, fuck yourself.
It was on there. So I only had like 10 things.
Yeah. So let's watch all those movies. I'm sure they're on Netflix or.
I hope you were taking notes, folks.
Yeah, you better be. That's the goal. Max, on Peacock, Paramount Plus, Hulu, Amazon Prime. What are the other ones? Freebie,
Criterion Channel.
Criterion Channel.
There's Dido. There's Peepoo.
A lot of these might actually be on Tubi.
No,
because everything is on Tubi.
And
Yeah.
everything
Tubi,
is on Tubi.
Everything is on Tubi. Have you guys ever watched?
1,000 commercials.
Yeah, I was gonna say, have you guys
Yeah.
ever actually like watched a movie on Tubi? It's the most.
Tubi actually is not that bad with their commercials. I have to say, 'cause
really?
I do
Is
watch
it
a lot of stuff on
Freebie?
Tubi.
That's
Yeah,
the
it's
bad one
Freebie,
with
the
commercials?
Amazon
Freebie
one.
Freebie's bad. And
Is-
Okay.
Pluto.
I
But
hate
sometimes if you're doing, one of these retrospectives or, Kevin's show or something,
Yeah.
sometimes it can be really hard to
Kevin's,
find
yeah.
things. And then you have to watch, a 3-hour version of a 90-minute film.
Yeah.
I know,
Tubi's
it's
pretty
like
good with it though. I will say they're not too bad with their commercials.
I remember we were
Yeah.
watching For Morven
Tubi's
Caller.
actually really good.
Jay and I had to watch it on, I think it was Freebie or whatever, the worst one of them. And that was like a movie that's you got to be in the rhythm of it, and it's all about mood and everything. And then all of a sudden it's like 45 minutes of commercials in between, like this really pivotal scene where she's chopping up a body, and you're like, what the fuck is going on? Like, this is,
and then
it's
Lady
weird
Gaga
cuts.
is selling you migraine medication. Yeah.
Well, she's doing that because she's got to also help pay the Joker bills too. So we ain't even talking about that. Good. We're not going to talk about that. Josh, can you tell everybody where they can find you and all your work on the internet?
You can find me on Twitter and Letterboxd at JR Parham, and you can also find all my work on Next Best Picture and AwardsWatch.
And also go on to Instagram. Oh, wait, Josh, you don't have an Instagram, right?
I mean, I technically do, but I never use it.
He's going to be on the gram a lot. He's going to be taking a lot of photos from Cannes. He's going to be up on those steps. He's going to be kicking Bad Bunny off or whatever. Sophia. Or is it? It's not Bad Bunny. It's who's the guy that get kicked off?
It's Jason Derulo.
Jason Derulo. Okay. Sophia, where can we find you and all your work?
You can find me on Twitter at Sophia_Sim, Letterboxd, same handle without the underscore. I mean, I guess you can follow me on Instagram too. My stories, I just post, I don't know, a lot of pictures of my cat and fun movie
Jacob
releases
Elordi.
coming out. Jacob Elordi.
Yeah.
Things that I don't like about Taylor Swift and what she's doing, just how it goes.
Your usual
My usual
hateful things.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
And sometimes my reviews too in upcoming episodes of my podcast, Oscar Wilde. We have a new episode on Chinatown coming out this week. You can find that wherever you find podcasts. And then all my reviews, interviews, everything like that at AwardsWatch.
A movie from the 1970s? Oh, I can't wait to hear Nick's thoughts on Oscar.
He liked Chinatown. I was
Did he?
surprised.
Don't spoil it for everyone now. Keep him in
No, I think he posted that he did like it, and I was like, all right.
I was like, okay.
That's a gag.
That's a period piece.
It's a period piece too. Yeah.
It kind of is.
Yeah.
Don't worry. No. All right. Maybe Nick's turning a new leaf this new season on Oscar Wilde. All right.
Yes.
Erik, you know the drill.
What?
You know the drill.
What did I do?
Where can we find you and all your crap?
All my crap. That's a really great way to put it.
On
and
Tubi.
On
Tubi. It's actually all being uploaded to Tubi as we speak.
Paramount Plus.
Yes. Obviously awardswatch.com, on Twitter at awards_watch, and just awardswatch everywhere else. Let's see, what do we have this week? Josh's review of Challengers, that comes out on IMAX on the 22nd. If there is ever a way to see a movie like that, it is on IMAX
in the biggest screen here, and like that score.
I think exactly. If you can hear that in Dolby, and if you can, sit in the very front row so that you can look straight up as Mike Feist looks straight down at you and sweats all over you. Totally, absolutely 10 out of 10 recommend.
You know that psychopath that bought the front row seat in New York for Oppenheimer? This is the movie you buy the front row. Yeah. This is the movie you buy that front row middle seat in the IMAX for, just to see the sauna scene alone. Oh my God.
Sweating.
Anything else, Erik? No?
Just, we've normal stuff. Emmy coverage will be coming up. Emmy interviews will be coming up.
If you're interested in television and the Emmys, there's also a podcast that happened last week.
Yeah. So I already mentioned it right at the top because
it was an official episode, right?
Yeah.
It was.
Sure.
It wasn't. It was an actual numbered episode. It wasn't like a Lost in the Vault.
Yeah.
So, it was. It was a real episode, Ryan.
We did lose an episode.
Because what is this, Director's Watch? Come on.
I mean,
all right.
Really though, this is the Awards Watch podcast. It is all
said the man that's coming up on the show sometime in the next couple weeks.
But it's not my show.
That's true.
The status of whether or not it's
Loose Josh is just the best Josh. This is my favorite. I got to come out Guns a blazing against Josh.
Like y'all can do whatever the fuck.
Don't you
want.
have a Cannes Film Festival to go to? God damn it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for reminding me.
It'll be like, yeah. All right. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, getting roasted by Josh at Ryan McQuade 77. You can find all my work here. And speaking of that humdrum podcast, Director Watch, we have a new episode this week, and Jay and I. It was just no guest this week. It's just me and Jay. We did the film for the Sophia Coppola series, Somewhere, which I feel like not a lot of people really talk about with their filmography, but we really enjoyed it. And actually, it was not to brag or anything. I actually think it was one of our better episodes that we've done. It was a really great discussion. I hope all of you guys go and listen to it. I think you can just rent the film. No freebie, no Tubi, none of that stuff. I think you have to actually spend $3.
What I'm hearing is that Ryan actually hates guests on Director Watch. He really just likes it when it's just him and Jay. That's what I'm hearing.
I mean, it was. We had a guest last week, and then the following week we'll have 5 more weeks of guests. But okay.
Yeah, I loved the Marie Antoinette episode.
It was really
Tommy Lee Jones and Joe Pesci. It was a fantastic episode. I loved it.
Jay's. I don't want to figure out who's who.
Jay talking about Jamie Dornan being the hottest man alive. My ears perked up.
Yeah.
I'll say that. I feel like we're having an impact.
I think so. I think we're making significant efforts. If 5 stars, 5 stars on Apple and on iTunes, or Apple, Apple, iTunes, and also on Spotify, please, for reviews. We greatly appreciate it. Newsletter, all that great stuff that Erik mentioned when he decides to do his job, gets sent out to you twice a week. It's the best place to get news, reviews, interviews, all that stuff sent to you. And then, I think that's it. Next week's show, we will be coming back here, and we will be doing the summer movie box office draft. It's that time of year, folks, where all of us friends become enemies. It becomes our civil war, from what I can. When you
that
really
does not look bleak at all.
No, it's not bleak at all.
No.
It'll be the last time that we all are very nice to one another. No, it'll be a fun episode. Our teams are all assembled. It's an interesting box office for this year. So Erik's team's got the championship belt that my team is going after, and it should be a lot of fun. And then the following week we'll be talking about challengers and all the sweaty misgivings of that film. That's for sure. So thank you all so much for listening, and we'll see you all next time.